Hello, everybody. It's Laura Eisenhower. I am joined today by Simon Parks. I'm so excited to see you, Simon. It's been a couple months since last we talked, so thank you so much for being here.
It feels more like a couple of years,
Yeah, no,
Laura.
I
You
think
should
maybe years. Yeah,
thinking it's months. I think it's years.
I know. I can't wait to hear your take on what's going on in the world. I know
Bless
everybody
you.
that's listening to this is familiar with Simon, but I'm going to say a few words about who Simon is. So, Simon is an initiator and founder of Connecting Consciousness. He is a British former elected politician, served a number of terms in office, and in addition to his spiritual awareness, he has access to helpful sources of information, not only due to his family background. His mother worked for the Britain Domestic Security Service, M15, and as a part of her work, wrote documents about UFOs that crashed on Earth and were recovered by American Special Forces. She also reported to the NSA. His grandfather worked for the British Secret Intelligence Service, M16, and was very closely associated with the American CIA. He was a British diplomat and later served at the United Nations. Wow. And your experiences with extraplanetary life forms, as well as military, is extensive. You went public in 2010. You were invited by the British Ministry of Defense to a secret British space radar station as a quasi-confirmation of his background. Since then, he is respected by the media as an authority on various extraterrestrial races and beings. And you became involved in 2015 with the RV and has since then signed a number of NDAs with the White Hats. I mean, so wow, with all that and all that we see in the news and everything that's going on, I mean, can you kind of bring us into the here and now? There was a market crash, crazy Olympic opening ceremony, um, the assassination of Trump. I mean, lots of theater, lots of real events. I mean, how can you help us find the clarity in these times?
All right. So first of all, how lovely to be chatting to you, whether it's 2 months or 2 years. It's always too long. I always like to chat to you. And I know that your audience are very clued up and they're very with it. So it's always a pleasure and an honor actually to be with you and your audience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I have a go at answering what you said there, I am hoping that all of this craziness, as you quite rightly call it, gets sorted because unfortunately, or fortunately, with the attention on the craziness, some of the topics that are as important or more important have been pushed on the back burner. And in fact, myself, I was told about 2 years ago, don't talk too much about UFOs, don't talk too much about it, because we want the attention on the politics in America. And I get that, and I understand that, but I do think that when this situation is, clear in America, we do need to get back to some of the very big issues which literally been shunted out the side. So, first of all, I don't believe it's a stock market crash at all, Laura. If the audience have the time to check back, you'll see over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks that the white hats have artificially pushed the price up on AI, on the technological corporations. You have put on a huge amount of money. And what's happening is that's been pared back. In fact, they could lose another 10% before they got back to where they were. But it gives the impression of a stock market crash. It isn't a crash. It is a resettling of all of the excess profit that these guys made over the last few weeks. So that is part of the narrative that we were laid out. There will be a stock market crash, but it isn't a true crash. It is a resettling. There won't be a bank crash. Individual banks will fail as they have done, but there won't be a banking crash. Nobody, good or bad, wants to take control of a country that's broken. It's just, you just wouldn't do it. And with all the money from the RV that's ready to go into the system, if you crash the banks, there would not be that infrastructure to take that amount of money. So that ain't going to happen. It just isn't. It's just a narrative that's been put out. Now, in terms of the Trump assassination, I get a little bit cross about this because this isn't the first time. There have been multiple times, but this is the time it caught the public's attention. have tried to kill his wife. They've tried to kill his children. And this is just one of many attempts. And there'll probably be another one, unfortunately, attempt before November. So I'm not at all surprised by what we saw, greatly saddened, but really pleased that he was okay. But this is what we expect to happen. And if nothing else, it's outing the deep state, who are hidden in the places that we thought were sacred. So we do think about President Kennedy and what the role of the FBI or the CIA played. And those questions are coming up now. What is the role of these people? So in a way, what happened is great for debate.
Yeah, so many different interpretations of that event. And so, yeah, multiple attempts on his life. And with Kamala now in the position of running for president,
yeah,
how are they going to pull that one off? You think? I mean, is it more the theater to awaken people, or is there really still a showdown of forces?
Yeah, I mean, you use the word theatre twice now, which shows me that you understand what's going on. And there is a difficulty here because there's the message that the White Hats want to go out, and there's another underlying theatre drama taking place. But of course, we have to focus on the fact that there is an election. Kamala said something very interesting yesterday in relation to Pennsylvania. She said, her and her running mate, she said, we are the underdogs. And that's very interesting. She actually said we're the underdogs because they're trailing, never mind what they give out, they're trailing between 5 and 7% behind in all of the key swing states. And that was a gaffe. She actually let on that they are the underdogs. So although the mainstream media is playing the fact that they're neck and neck, and the White Hats are also doing that, because if it's sold as a done deal, why would people bother to vote? So the message going out there is it's neck and neck, it's knife edge. The reality is in the swing states, Trump is very well ahead. But overall, generally, is probably only about 2% ahead. So it's not a done deal by any chalk, and we've got a few more months to go. So everything to play for, and the baddies won't give up. They have no intention of giving up.
How much are they being sort of rounded up, though? I mean, people talk about these operation executions, and they're just clones. And
well, there was a 4-star general that said to one of my colleagues that one of the Bidens was indeed a clone. He was absolutely clear and said that they break down. You know as well as I do, they don't last very long. Maybe 6 weeks, maybe 3 months if you're lucky. Clones just don't last. They can't. And the more you replicate the same thing, the shorter the lifespan. And he was either having a joke with my friend or he was being very serious. But that's what he said. One of the clones was breaking down. People have been arrested. People are still being arrested. But I would say to you that most of the lion's share work is done. Most of it's done. The difficulty, I think, was that you can't dismantle the structure that the White Hats need. You can remove individuals, but you can't destroy the structure. The structure's taken thousands of years to build, and the baddies built it. And the White Hats need that structure. They need to use that. So I think you've got pockets of resistance. That's how I would put it now.
Right. So with what we see on the mainstream stage, though, like the Olympics and the opening ceremony, take us into that a little bit. Everybody saying it's an inversion or a mockery of the Last Supper, and just really pushing the transgender indoctrination. What are your thoughts on all of that and the amount of attention that all got?
Well, it's interesting that the situations occur when heavily hosted by a Catholic country. We've had similar situations in Ireland. with the Eurovision Song Contest, and France, which is a very, very strong Catholic country. So that should be understood that any attack against Christianity and general good behavior is being done in a country that would be least supportive of it. And in fact, indeed, a number of Catholic bishops did indeed write to the Olympic Committee saying that they were very unhappy with the anti-Christian, anti-Jesus opening ceremony. And what this does do, I think, is sicken people. Now, I'm like you, I hope we're all very tolerant. And, you know, I run with Becky an organization of 125,000 people worldwide. And we are not party to any one particular religion or group. But, you know, if I walk down the main road and I see 10 couples holding hands, 9 of those 10 couples will be a man and a woman. One might be 2 men, one might be 2 women, but 9 of the 10 will be a man and a woman, and that is the majority. Now, if you start pushing a theme for political reasons that is not the majority, then you will upset the majority. And I think that's what's going on here. It's not about attacking people who have a different take on their sexuality or the way they wish to express themselves. But I think what's wrong is when elite people take a political agenda and use it to try to subvert the family or society or community or the thread of a very country. And that, I think, is what we were demonstratingly seeing in Ireland and France, where strong religious countries were having hosted within them something that was absolutely satanic. And that's actually what we saw there. So let's hope it just wakes loads of people up.
Right. Yeah, and then and it seems to just create the triggers that they can leverage, like transphobic or racist. And it seems like Kamala is really going to be running with that, you know, sexist, racist kind of thing. And it's crazy because when we think of ascension and unity consciousness and understanding our divine blueprint, you know, just how all of this, you know, is playing out. But don't they know their time is up? Are there some that are more willing to come forward, dropping their alliance and just turning things around instead of getting further immersed, you know, like having those breakthroughs of.
Okay, well, the freedom marches of the 60s are long gone in that sense of the word. I know we've had Roe versus Wade, which has challenged, but to a certain extent, the position with people of color should be fairly clear and enmeshed within the strength of the Constitution and the way the states deliver it. So when a politician wants to actively go up and dig up that element, that actually will be counterproductive. There are an awful lot of people of color, black people, we would say in Britain, but I know Americans refer to people of color, who frankly want to move on from that argument. They moved on. I mean, a lot of black people are very successful. A lot are not. But those that are and are doing well, they don't want that argument dragged in again, because basically you're American first and black second, or you're American first and you're white second. So Kamala Harris's fall back onto that type of divisive campaigning won't work. It might have worked in the 60s when there was a real battle on the streets. But what we're seeing now is political-led, like Black Lives Matter and other political organizations that aren't actually there fighting for the freedom of people of color. They're there because they've had 25 or 50 bucks put in their pocket to go out and do trouble. So I think that will not work. What people want to know is, how many dollars am I going to have in my pocket? What is the state of the education? What is the economy? What is the strength of our armed forces? Is law enforcement able to protect us? They're the sort of questions that people actually care about, not just in America, but right across the world. And any politician who wants to live on fear and hatred rather than to address the real bread and butter issues of the day, they're finished. I mean, I was a politician, and I met the people on the subjects and the topics that they bothered about, and they voted for me because I addressed what they wanted, not their fears in terms of let's create fear, but what are the worries we have about our economy? What about our children, our grandchildren? What sort of a world, a country have we got for them? What are we doing about it? Not trying to drag up issues that frankly don't help anyone. So if that's her campaign stance, let her do it, because that'll just lead them to disaster. In terms of the general state of the country, actually, I think America's in quite a good position.
Oh, good.
I do think so. I think because the good guys are not prepared to let America go beyond a certain point, because what the hell are they going to, inherit? They don't want to inherit a problem where you have got issues where the communities are divided. That's what's happened under the Biden administration. He has allowed division within a country that really shouldn't have division.
Yeah, it's been unbelievable. What do you feel the next maybe card they might attempt to play? Fake alien invasion or another virus?
Well, when you
Is it even going to work? Is it like it's just?
Oh, okay. Well, when you drop in the word card and the alien invasion, the next card is the alien invasion. I mean, I think that's really great. I think that we won't be seeing any of that just at the moment. I think that it's a very domestic battle that's being played out. My concern is Iran, Israel, and what the position of the Biden administration is regarding that. It's one of those occasions where President Trump can quite honestly hold his hands up and say it's nothing to do with me. I'm not in the office, and look what's occurring. So it is very much a Biden administration problem, which they have created just to a large extent. I know that if Trump had been in office, he would have probably got peace within 48 hours, because that's the sort of man he is. And unfortunately, Biden is so weak, or the administration, the handlers around the character are so divided. So what do I expect to happen? I do expect some issue with Iran and Israel. I hope to God that the military do not allow themselves, American military, to get drawn in to a regional war that I see as a more hot situation than Russia and Ukraine at the moment. I think the next up till what's today, Wednesday, next 2 days are very crucial. I think next 2 days are very crucial.
Right. I mean, obviously the human race has been targeted and compromised for thousands and thousands of years. And people are thinking about, ascension or timelines. I mean, what can we do? How influential are we really to the outcome of events? I mean, when we look at timelines, there's converging timelines or points where, there's major convergence going on. But, I mean, how do you explain that concept to people, bifurcation and just timelines and making sure you're on the right timeline? And
Okay. I think the difficulty actually is if you say to somebody, raise your vibration, which I hear a lot of commentators saying, but they then don't explain how you do that. It's so glib, it's so easy. Raise your vibration. This hasn't happened because your vibration's too low. Well, frankly, that's doing a disservice to humanity. The difficulty I've perceived is that the vast majority of humanity doesn't know what it is. It doesn't actually know what it's capable of, because it's been lied to and it's been tricked. And it's had the wool, as we say in Britain, pulled over its eyes. So it can't get itself out of this difficulty easily because it has no roadmap. It doesn't know how to do it. It's never stood on its own 2 feet before. It's always been led by the nose, as it were. And so humans don't actually appreciate the capabilities they have. They don't understand they can create, they can change time. And that, I hope, will come with education. There are a number of people who've broken free of the matrix, and sometimes something personal has happened to them to make them realize that the world around them isn't there for them. They're just a paid slave. Other people have had past lifetime experiences and their soul has activated and they've woken up. Some people have had a job of work and suddenly seen things in their work, which causes them to completely change the whole aspect of how they view their world. And for many people, they go into meltdown, because if you've spent 30, 40, 50, 60 plus years of your life believing something, and then over midnight, you're shown that that's all for nothing, in terms of the physical world, then it can be devastating. And the reality is that it isn't the world that's important. It's what resides within us and how we connect with other people. So I think that what's playing out in the world with Trump and others is a slap in the face for people who can either learn it, develop, and move forward, or they can turn their back on it and say, I wish to ignore it. And that's why, coming back to your point about you did that, you're quite right. The bifurcation between those who choose a fifth dimensional result and those who want to stay where they are, energetically, this is exactly what's taking place. I do want to, correct is not the right word, not my position to do so, but I do want to qualify other people who very arrogantly say, I'm in the fifth dimension. No, you're not. Your physical body is still here. This is 3.5% of a frequency. It's a very arrogant thing to say, I'm ascended, I'm a fifth dimension. No, you're not. No, you're not. But what we're doing within our bodies, our souls, is we're trying to reach for a higher understanding of who we are, what the world that we exhibit, and the world outside of our universe, all the other life forms who are desperately waiting for us to actually evolve to the point where they can be comfortable to sit down. You know, there are many people you'll say, well, I wouldn't invite that person to have a meal with me. And that's the way it is at the moment, because we're just so bloody primitive. But if we can learn a bit about who we really are, and that means we've got to be helped, because people have got to be told the truth. But once we've done that, we will be in a position to sit down with non-human entities and on a level playing field, be treated with respect and have that type of interaction. So it's a crucial time for this planet, crucial time for the humanity. Breakthrough now, make it now, and literally the stars are our end goal. No question of it.
Right. And just with all that you're saying, there should be more available healing modalities and technologies and more resources made available from higher intelligence, that when we begin to interact with them, they could help reverse some of the damage done by bioweapons and the 5G and just all the tactics being used to mind control. That'll unwind. Is there rehabilitation kind of ahead of us?
Sure. Well, look, that's why the Chevron laws changed in the US. That's why the Supreme Court came in and changed the Chevron law. So basically, it doesn't mean that pharmaceuticals are outlawed. What it does mean is that alternative medicine cannot be taken through the courts. So the change in the Chevron law means that independent organizations can run independent medical facilities with that the FDA has not approved, but they will not be able to successfully use the courts to get them. So that, at a stroke of a pen, has allowed the non-human technology passing through the Pentagon to be outsourced to private organizations or individuals who are trusted to run a change in the way that humans expect to be treated. And it will take up to 10 years. But that's why the Chevron law was changed.
Wow, so that's good news.
Mm.
Well, if people are talking about it's like a civil war maybe happening in the UK. What's all that about?
No, it's not a civil war. Um, Basically, what happened was that tragically 3 children were killed, stabbed by somebody who was not with a British sounding name, and a small but powerful group of predominantly white people who are unhappy with immigrants, unhappy with people coming in from other countries, are voicing their displeasure. Now, the difficulty is not so much that, although obviously that's a difficulty, but it's about how it's being handled by the state, how the system is handling it. And the police reaction to that is being used by these people to say that there's two-tier policing. In other words, the argument is that police are being soft on, liberals, left wing, as you would call them, communists, but being very hard on the indigenous right wing people. Now, I don't know whether that's true, but what I do know as a ex-politician is that the way you handle a tragedy, a situation, is as important 3 days, 4 days after the incident as much as you handle it on the moment. In other words, people will be judged, and the feelings of either betrayal or confidence in the system are built on the days after that situation. And what's occurring is not building confidence generally in the British public. So what I'm saying is that it's not civil war, but it's a fracturing of British society based on what they believe or some believe as an injustice, and is compounded by the way that the system is dealing with that issue.
Mm.
That helps.
Yeah. What's going on with the royal family, though? Like, just lots of CGI, or just with hate?
No, well, I attended a meeting. Oh God, it was about 4 years ago now in a hotel in London, right next to Buckingham Palace. And the person that I was meeting, who was American, had a meeting with then the Prime Minister and indeed a member of the royal family, and then wanted to have a chat with me the day afterwards. And it was very clear that the people, the good guys, had a routeway to the royal family, dealing with the members of the British royal family that they felt that they could do business with. So we're talking about people who are not bad, just good people generally. So a history of Britain always had a king or a queen. You can't just wipe that away quickly and expect everyone to be normal. You can't do that. So we've had a process in this country where people have lost faith in the governments, they've lost faith in the royal family, in basically any institution. And it's happened the same in America. People have lost faith in the security service in America. And it means that people are more open to an alternative vision. In terms of the royal family, the king does not have the authority that the queen had. And the king, I think, is there by the grace and favour of others. But the vast majority of British public, I mean, what did Trump say? Trump said his own mother loved the queen. So even he was saying he appreciated that there were some things that you couldn't tackle head on. You had to tackle it through the back door.
Right. Oh my gosh, so many questions are coming to me. How can you help people understand, like, the city of London, Washington, D.C., and the Vatican, and the state of Israel, and just like this whole just targeting of, groups and individuals that get the public confused. So they're blaming the targeted race. You know what I mean? And how are those all like connected, and what sort of tactics are being used? I don't know if I'm gonna ask this.
Yeah,
But you know how like the Zionists
I've got it.
Yeah.
The problem is that through the alternative media, there's a phrase which is Israel will be last. Now, when we say Israel will be last, are we talking about those people who are in their 80s and 90-year-old? The babies have just been born? Of course we're not. We're not talking about the vast majority of Jewish people who are just ordinary people who want a peaceful life. And we've seen that time and time again, where the mainstream media has hidden it, but ordinary people on their cell phones have recorded up to 100,000 Israelis demonstrating in Tel Aviv demanding peace. So we need to be, if we're going to be balanced about this, we need to say that there is the people of a country who are by and large good, and then a government of a country or a clique or a group or a cabal of a country who are bad. So I dislike any attack that labels a whole country. I much prefer people to be specific. Now, Zionism, what's hilarious, that's an English word we use, what's hilarious is that Biden's come out and said he's a Zionist. You know, and that doesn't seem to have caused a problem with anyone in the media at all. But if Trump had come out and said he was a Zionist, there would have been a problem. So Biden said he's a Zionist. In fact, I watched it. He was with Benjamin Netanyahu, and Netanyahu said something like, he's a Jewish Zionist and you're an Irish Zionist, because Biden can trace an Irish ancestry. So what is Zionism? This is the problem with people. Zionism was literally a political position which said that Israel should have a country to live in. That's what Zionism actually is. It was created before the state of Israel was created, before the Israelis were settled in anywhere. Zionism was the fact to have a home country, a place that they could be in. Now, the United Nations banned the Zionist regime for about 10 or 15 years until they actually looked into actually what it was, and then they rescinded their ban because they realized it wasn't a violent group per se. It was a group that wanted a homeland. Now, when the British have a lot to answer for, of course, throughout the world and throughout history, but when the British ultimately put the Israelis into what was Palestine, the Zionist group physically attacked the British military there, because they could say, what the heck are you doing, putting us into a location where we're surrounded by these people who quite understandably don't want us. So the whole issue of Israel should be divided between the people of a country who want a normal life, thank you very much, and a small group of people who, you don't even have to have the label Zionism, you would just say globalists, or those who want to rule the world. Okay, so we've got these issues which the alternative media have been fed. I don't know who's doing that, but it's not accurate. It's just whipping up people who actually don't do the research, don't understand it, and don't really get the full picture. And I just find it's not helpful.
Right, right. What are your thoughts about, Anunnaki though returning, and people talking about Enki or Enlil? What do we need to be wary of or discerning about when it comes to Anunnaki, or what might appear to be benevolent ETs that might in our history not have played the protector role they might have been supposed to play, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I do. I did a recent interview with Ishmael Perez. He was interviewing me. I wasn't interviewing him. And the reason I got that, I went on there, was because he'd done an interview with Kerry Cassidy, and my name had come up. And I don't know about you, Laura, but when people start talking about me, I want to get in there and say, well, what are you talking about? I want to get in there.
Me too.
So basically, Kerry had said to Ishmael Perez, listen, if you want to talk to him, because he said he wanted to, you need to have a word with him. and he'll decide. So I thought, right, I better get in. Now I don't know Ishmael Perez. I never met him. I now know he's written a book. I haven't read his book. And I just thought, right, well, you're discussing me. I don't really know what the heck they were talking about, but they were discussing me. That Kerry knows me really well. I've got a huge respect for Kerry. So I thought, well, I'll get it. And so I did that. Now, to my mind, nothing controversial came up on that. In terms of you asking about Ennelenk, my that did come up actually. My view was that's generally perceived that one of the brothers was more benevolent to humanity than the other one. And what I say is we have to be careful because ultimately neither were human. Neither were human. So they both would have had their own agendas. Now, one might have been more open and helpful, but ultimately they had their own Machiavellian power play out taking place. And as a sovereign being, I would not like to give my authority away to a non-human alien who may or may not have my best interests at heart. So that's my position. And I did put a statement out because it got quite hot actually. And I said, look, to Americans, you've got the Second Amendment. It's a free speech. We should allow people to discuss and talk and have different opinions to us, because that is the whole element of free speech. We may not agree with what someone says, but we shouldn't seek to close down that debate. That is what the deep state does. That's what the deep state does. That's what the alphabet groups do. I mean, I'm banned from YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, I'm banned from YouTube because I talk about topics regarding the Republican Party, which they don't want to hear. And I talk about topics about the Democrat Party that they don't want. So I got banned because of a political position that I had, and I that's the sort of thing. But we can't make that. We can't go down that road. So we should really allow people to talk and have their viewpoints. Otherwise, what the heck do we do it for? So that's really my stand.
Exactly. I resonate fully. It's difficult when you can't debate or ask these sort of questions, or when you see a reaction. I'm not talking about Ismail, but when you see a reaction of, you're smearing me if you question it or debate it. There's a really big difference between debating and asking questions than like smearing. And if a person's that attached to this entity or group, and they're in that much reactionary stance, if you were to question it, that's a huge red flag to me. I mean, any benevolent race would understand the trauma that we're all going through and our trust issues, and that it's really about us finding ourselves again, not looking outside ourselves. And yeah, that just has been a big red flag. And I've gotten into trouble just because of wanting to debate in a respectful way, and lost a lot of friends, colleagues, because I wanted to ask these harder questions. And I found that really odd and bizarre. So I'm glad
to be honest with you, friends and colleagues wouldn't try to force their opinions and values onto a person. There are those people that have a position but think that everyone should have the same position as them.
the deep state.
Yeah, and there are those that have a position but say, listen, hey, I appreciate that others think differently. Does that mean that you're not my brother, you're not my sister? That's what happened in the war with America, when they were killing each other, brother killing brother. And have we not learned? Have we not evolved? Are we still at that position where a person has a viewpoint but cannot expect anyone else to have a different viewpoint? Have we not moved on? So I would suggest that we have moved, but there are a number of people who are so heavily invested that they have taken their eye off the ball. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
And I want to get as much knowledge and as much information out there, and let people make the decision.
Exactly.
Don't ever dare somebody say to another member of your audience, you can't listen to that. You can't listen to that because I don't like it. What the hell is that? What
I
we
know.
really go out there, hear what you want to hear, and make your choice.
That's exactly where I stand. And that's really what my book is about. I mean, what is your truth? And you don't have to adopt mine or whatever, but this is what I discovered along the way. Take it or leave it. It's just hopefully it'll, help you to connect with what's real for you or what resonates for you to be, I don't know, the best you can be. Or when I say best, I don't know. I don't mean that in a
I know what
duality,
you mean.
like best,
I
worst.
know what you mean.
Yeah, our full potential,
Yeah.
which is the whole healing process that
Yes.
needs to be embraced. And I think some new agey concepts or types, I don't think really focus on the depth of wounds that we as a humanity need to heal. You can't just sit there in that enlightenment, like you said, the 5D. Oh, I'm ascended in the 5D. It's like we got a lot of work here to do. There's a lot of trauma, a lot of wounds, a lot of rehabilitation, a lot of humility that needs to come with recognizing that. Because I feel a lot of that arrogance and confidence is a mask in a lot of ways. And I mean, sometimes I feel like it's really, really hard to be an empath and really sensitive to everything going on in the world, even if everything's going to be okay. What can you say to us sensitive types that are very empathic, that process through a lot of the pain and need to just move through it? That doesn't necessarily mean you're going down a difficult timeline or that it's negative. It's just some of us are here to feel it, to heal it, would you say?
Well, go back to the first summer of love, the CIA felt that they were losing control of the entire young people in America. So there was a really big operation to undermine the youth movement in the United States. And now we have unicorns and rainbows and fluffy clouds. And unfortunately, they have successfully hijacked the New Age movement to the point that they got it going where they want, which is not focusing on ourselves and our work, but aiming for some sort of ideal which actually, frankly, doesn't exist. So that's my view. In terms of empathy, people who have been empathic have always had to be careful they don't take the pain of the world on them. If you are working as your role to help heal people, sort trauma out, or do anything, you will, as a natural course of that, take on that hurt and that damage yourself. And so what I've always said is that you need to literally be in a position where you pinpoint, you focus, you go in and do what you need to do, you close the doors and you come out again. Because if you don't, you are not effective and you will be swamped by the pain that is all around us. I often use the analogy of a young child with a flashlight in a dark room. And I say, once a child's put that flashlight on and can look in the dark room, why would he or she ever want to turn that flashlight off again? In other words, if you have a psychic capability, you never want to give that up, go back to being what, Harry Potter call the muggles, or others call the mundane people. You have a gift, but what you must do is to protect yourself so that the gift doesn't become a burden to you. So you use the gift for good purposes, but ensure that you don't take the damage that comes on it. And that means limiting the amount of work you do over a period of time.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, for sure. Um, Sometimes, well, not sometimes, but one often hears that deep state tactics are to mind control people and have them consent to something that they will pay the karmic retribution for. But because they convince you to do it, they're in the clear, but the person that was under the influence isn't. I have a hard time with that. I don't necessarily feel that because this level of manipulation is it's an intrusion and it's an invasion, to such a young mind, children even before birth, and along with our past life history. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they don't do it for that purpose. They do it for financial gain. They do it for power. Um, they're not bothered about their karmic retribution because they believe they're doing what they have to do. They think they're doing it for their good purposes. That's the difficulty here.
But even trafficking and adrenochrome.
Yes, because they have a religion, have a satanic religion. That is the part of their religion. Just as a good Catholic will go to church, these people do what they have to do, won't be on Sunday. But they are invested in a particular doctrine. They have been since they were born or before they were born. If you look at the Montauk Project, look how children were being used. And 9 times out of 10, they would not come back. So there's always been a policy to use people who were not necessarily from a bloodline or from an elite group, but if it forwarded the agenda of that evil group, they would do it. And they don't think about retribution or their karmic history. They're not bothered about that because they believe what they're doing is right. If you think about in the Second World War, some of those Japanese aircraft pilots would crash their airplane into United States ships, believing that they would go to a very special place. That was their belief. And if you take a group of people and you give them a belief system, they can be very dangerous.
Right. So, but if somebody is under mind control and they break through it, doesn't that clear them from, because it wasn't really their consent, it was engineered into them?
So you're talking about the victims.
Yeah.
Well, you see, we have free will to say no, thank you. But another person has free will to say, I am not going to respect your free will. I am going to do this. Now, when someone is tricked into something, universally, it has no hold. So there's no contract. If you willingly accept something, then you are in a contract. Talk about energy contract.
Right.
What we have on the world with the physical is just a mere copy of the energy contract. If you go into a contract full knowing and fully aware, then you are bound by that contract. Now, most people wouldn't do that because they see what's on offer and they're not interested. So they have to be tricked or tortured or forced or blackmailed. And in those cases, there is a way out. Now, let's take a senator who is blackmailed into doing some really awful things. The original way that he was trapped into it was wrong, but he didn't have the fortitude to break free of it. So that's something that would be argued in a galactic court of law. But for most of us, if a victim is tricked or forced into something, then there is no karmic energy attached to them at all.
Yep. That question just came up with somebody not too long ago. Wanted to hear your take on that. Oh. Do you feel is Tavistock still running? What has been shut down? Like how much has these places been, shut down, or how are they operating to this day? And help us understand what Tavistock is and the tentacles of that.
That's a good question. Could do a whole show on that, couldn't you? Well, the Tavistock Centre in London is closed 3 years ago. Why I had to actually close the building. Tavistock Centre is closed. However, I would imagine that there are outlying groups, and they won't be very big, and they won't be big facilities, and they won't be in the public eye, but there will still be elements of it that are operating, but no longer are they receiving funding through the state. So governments aren't giving Tavistock any funding. The reason I say that, one day, Laura, I would love to come back, because of your grandfather's connection, etc., I would love to come back, because it is not known. Maybe only 1% of people know that Adolf Hitler went to Tavistock. So after the First World War, he came to Britain and was at Tavistock. So Tavistock has been running for a very long time. And before that, the Egyptian high priests and all the rest of it, right back to Sumeria and through the non-human connections. But Tavistock also, of course, worked with the famous Beatles, the Beatles group. But no, they're not funded now by governments, legitimately or otherwise, and they are still operating in small groups, ad hoc. So yeah, that's what I would answer that one.
Right. So yeah, and like the underbelly of the Vatican and all that, just and underground bases and just all these sort of hidden operations with the amount of exposure that's taken place. Has that been a huge element to its takedown along with the White Hats? I mean, would you say that the process of awakening and the positive military forces working in tandem have been successful in?
Yeah.
And now it's just a matter of like healing and helping people to process through the betrayal and the deception and the trauma of what they're waking up to.
I'm not sure that the full truth will ever be given to the public. Of course, why would people, unless they have the right connections, they cannot be expected to know certain things, and why would they? But the Vatican has been vastly misunderstood. The Vatican was the place where you got the seal of approval. It wasn't necessarily where things started from. It was a seal of approval. And I had a good friend who, in the days of, that was Bush Jr. This person was at a National Security Council meeting, and Bush was there, Cheney was there, and I cannot remember the name of the woman now. Was it Rice? Possibly a woman called Rice, who was in charge of the full Homeland Security. But anyway, they were having a discussion in front of my friend, and my friend overheard somebody say to Bush, "Look, it's okay. We've sorted out the next election. We're going to win it." And my friend said to, I think it was either Donald Rumsfeld or to Cheney, "Well, how have you done that?" And he said, "Well, we've had a word with the Pope, and it's all been agreed." So what we've got with the Vatican is a rubber stamp, a seal of approval, that this is what I agree you can do, rather than any other aspect of it. That was really in later days how they were. But of course, Trump put a stop to that, and a vast amount of treasures and gold were taken out of the Vatican, and the tunnel that ran out of the Vatican. So honestly, now the Vatican isn't an issue, not anymore.
What about stopping this transgender, just take your kids away from your parents if they want to get a sex change? I mean, is that being dealt with?
Well, I think. Sorry to interrupt you, Laura.
No.
I think it's to do with the parents. The parents are going to stop that.
Yeah.
The parents are going to stop it.
You want to feed your kids to the wolves? I mean, right?
Well, it depends what the age of the child is. I mean, if the age of the child in the law of the land can make a decision, then there's nothing you can do about it. But if the child is a certain age, and you find out the school is doing something, you go down to that school physically, and you say to them, "I'm not having that. Now, I'm either going to take my kid out, or you're going to stop this, or I'm going to get every newspaper, every radio station down here, and we're going to get a group of parents, and we're going to do a story on every day until you stop that." That is what is going to happen. And it's no good people looking to their congressman, their senator. Bloody well go out and fight for your own children. So no, that's what's going to happen. If people don't like the way their children are being dealt with, do something about it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's really where the change has to, come from.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So you feel this election isn't going to be stopped, or
My own group, I said to them 60-40 against Trump coming back early, 60-40. There was a 60% chance that we would go through to the election and a 40% chance that Trump would come back early. I truthfully believe 2 years plus ago, it was really on the tables he would come back early because they felt the goodies, the good guys felt there was no alternative. But what's happened is there's been leaps and bounds in taking back America for good. And I now think that the White Hats feel they can run it to an election and win. Whereas 2 years ago, I think they were very, very concerned that there was no way that a good man could win an election. So I still think that there's a 20% chance that there'll be no election, but I'm now saying 80% will have a November election, 20% no, we won't. And that's based on the White Hats and their information they give me and how they think the situation in America has developed over the last 6 months.
Mhm. Is this one of the only planets that has been invaded to this degree? And I mean, is this an unusual planet in that respect, or is this?
Well, you are asking me that question. You know the answer. You're being very good. You know the answer, but you are obviously posing the question that a person has asked you. I would know that a lesser person would genuinely not know the answer. You do know the answer, so thank you for being so humble with that. This battle that's being fought on this planet will decide the future from many time zones and many dimensions. We are fighting artificial intelligence. We are fighting a reptilian form. We are fighting a number of groups that feel that they can manipulate humanity. So this is I don't know, we don't have them in this country, but you in Canada and other countries have great forest fires and you create a fire break where you get rid of a lot of trees and then the fire hopefully can't jump across. This blue planet, water planet, is a fire break. They want to stop it here so that this corruption doesn't go on. And that is why it's so important, not just to us, but to a lot of other life forms, both good and bad, and why so many non-human type creatures have taken a great interest on this planet. And we are now 1 minute to midnight to decide our future as a living entity, but also the future of many other life forms that, like it or not, are connected to what we choose. So this is a most amazing battle, and we are being assisted. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to step up ourselves. But I know you know the answer to that.
Yeah. Well, and if we don't, how are we really going to have the discernment? We could be easily fooled. And
Yeah.
like you said, this is a time to reflect on the past and learn from it and not keep repeating these things in a different disguise. Because that's what the deep state tactics are. And the inheritance of that are the people programmed by it that carry on that sort of patterning and don't realize they're doing it. But it's the same kind of playbook that it's sort of like inheriting from the foster parents and the step parents instead of divine creator parents that we've been sort of not as in touch with because of all these institutions that have been infiltrated.
Yes.
Oh, it's always amazing to talk to you. I'm so grateful for your time.
My mother for some of her work, she worked with television in commercial. And this is right back in the 1950s, the 50s. And even then, they referred to commercials as magic because they said that they used magic to sell their products. And it's about ideas. It's about selling ideas or belief systems. And sadly, vast majority of humanity are ignorant, and I don't mean that in a rude word, true dictionary meaning, are ignorant of how everyday lives are manipulated by dark magic.
It's amazing to me how many people have survived cults that are in so many different, religions and groups or just an infiltrated religion or group,
Mm.
and how easy it is to control, the mind of humans, even though in a way, I mean, they're targeting humanity because of what we hold. But yet,
Yes.
when we're challenged, the vulnerability and susceptibility has been so strong. It's like people are afraid of their sovereignty and they want somebody else to
Mm.
follow. And it just seems like this level of betrayal is a wake-up call, to have that reunion with who you are and what you're capable of. And it's not an easy step for a lot of people.
But the thing is, you see, that if your soul in your body, and this is the first time here, you are a new person, and you don't know what it's about. Or if you've been here 20, 30, 40, 50 times, but you never learnt your lessons, you are as a new person. So it's much easier to suggest or take over people who are fresh to this planet or fresh to the politics that are played. Those like you, Laura, who have come from a very long, far distant place, and remember quite a lot, you are more suspicious. I don't mean it negatively, but you on your guard, and you know the enemy. You know the enemy. You detect it. You know the way they operate. You feel it. You get it. And it's like, children in a kindergarten. They trust, because the human race is incredibly naive and incredibly trusting. And we like to see the good in people, and we cannot believe when people do evil. And those people that do evil are generally the movers and shakers within the evil group. So very rarely, when someone does evil, it generally it's connected. There's, like you talked about earlier, the octopus. They will find people who are have a mental issue, genuine mental issue, or they're heavily into drugs, or they drink, or they're very low, they're very upset, something's happened, and they look for a weakness in a person, and then they go in and do it. And if you've never experienced, and you don't teach you this in school, you don't understand it. For instance, we had a fantastic person, coordinator, not going to give any names away. And this person turned up on my doorstep 3 years ago and said, came from America. Literally, I've come here to be of service to you. And that's fantastic. That's a real commitment. Great, come in, fine. You, brilliant. Then I get a phone call from a department in America saying to me, okay, we tried to stop this person coming in. We weren't able to. And as long as this person is in your organization, we're not going to fund you, Simon. So I said, well, you better tell me why, because this person has only ever been good to me. And they said, well, when this person was about 7 years old, they found, school teacher could find that they could do strange things. And they reported it to their school board and up the ladder. And in the end, the CIA came and took this person that you have with you now, took them away to a CIA school and got them to, with their mind, lift chairs and vases and do, remote viewing. And we're worried that this person could have a CIA trigger program in them, which could activate and could be very difficult for you. So, but the person knew nothing about it. And that's the point. The person was innocent. So I said, well, it's got a 6-month contract with me. I'm going to honor that. And then I'll let her go. And they said, that's absolutely fine, Simon. That's absolutely fine. So what I'm saying is that the gains, the depth of what is happening or happening to the human race, 99% of people haven't a clue. They haven't a clue about how they're being used, manipulated. It's not just by television, it's by lots of other ways.
Oh, yeah.
And once you get a grasp of that, it's like the kid with the flashlight. Once you see the truth, why would you ever not want to know the truth? So around us 24/7, there are dynamic actions by the baddies and the goodies. And as a human race, we have got to try and find our way through to the moment of truthfulness. Yeah.
Brilliantly put. But if they can activate, I mean, like armies of individuals that have maybe a programming or implant, or just, can that be deactivated? Can that be shut down? Or are the souls maybe able to override that because we're in such a profound window of?
Oh. Well, it depends on the method. For instance, if you have a lot of individual people who have been individually mind controlled, maybe with alternate personalities, suicide programs, etc. Yes, they can be deprogrammed. But if you're talking about chip implantation into groups of people, the only way they can be deactivated is by a counter frequency being sent to those chips. So it depends if people have been microchipped and are used as a zombie force, for want of a better word, or whether they are individual people who do not have a physical chip in that sense of the word, but they have mind control programs or operations that they have. And depending on the individual is how you would have to work to free that person.
Right. But on a mass level with the jabs and possible events, is that something we're going to maybe see play out?
Well, I hope to God that the vast majority of those jabs were benign. I hope to God that most of them were nothing.
Yeah.
I hope that the white hats were able to get in there and, do what they needed to do. We have seen quite a lot of death, which the authorities won't admit to, but we haven't seen the doomsday scenario that we were told. And that tells me that the good boys got in there quite early and tried to mitigate it.
Right. It feels like this time next year, we'll be feeling the manifestation of these positive military actions, right? I mean, when we see the news, we might not be seeing it, but it should become more clear pretty soon, I would think.
Well, I hope November the 6th. But I would say to you that please don't hope for too much disclosure too soon. For instance, in a number of countries, good things are happening, but without any trumpets being blown. For instance, there are people in countries who have huge credit card debts and can't repay them. And they have been written to and told them that their credit card bill is cut in half. But there's no explanation. And I think what we're going to find, literally good things will happen, but there'll be no explanation as to why. In this country, there is a particular bank that has literally given every customer £500 for nothing. And all they did was send an email out saying, we think it's in our duty to share our profits.
Oh.
So literally £500, which is what's that, $690 or something, $700, just for being a customer of the bank. The real reason, of course, is it's part of Nasara Chisara, and it's starting to redistribute the wealth back to poorer people, but they're not telling them it's Nasara Chisara. There's no fanfare. And I am saying to people who watch the RV, do not expect a great day of truth and openness, because I just don't think that, rightly or wrongly, the good guys think that we're ready for it.
Because there's a massive withdrawal, or just is too much. I mean,
because if you do that, it begs lots of questions, and then you have to start answering those questions or not. And one question leads to another question, and then ultimately it will all end up with Roswell. So they don't want questions that go beyond what they're prepared to talk about. So rather than open a topic, they will just take a position, take a stance. Maybe they just say, right, well, the federal tax, we're going to cut it by 50%. And people say, why? Well, because we think we should,
Mhm.
rather than the real reason. And I think we're going to see an awful lot of that.
Right.
Now, ultimately, it doesn't matter because the benefit will be felt by the ordinary people. But for purists in our movement, they will be, I think, greatly disappointed that there isn't a full disclosure on the economic situation.
Right. But things should change even with the IRS.
But most definitely, they will change with the IRS. They're going to change right across the board. People will be incredibly better off. They're not going to be multimillionaires as much as some alternative media sites are saying, but they will actually no longer have to worry about a roof over their head or feeding themselves. That is the position that the White Hats want. They want a more healthy, more secure community, but they're not about to make everyone a multimillionaire.
Right. Is time travel still a factor? Is there any manipulation that can still take place through the use of time travel?
Oh, most definitely.
So
It is
how
one
much?
of the hot topics. It's about closing the portals off. You know yourself with all the experiments, and it's been, I think they've talked about it like a Swiss cheese, where you've got all these holes in the cheese and they're all portals. What you have to do is you have to police each portal, block some, have a gate on them. And if you have an agreement that stops that technology being used, you then no longer have extra portals being added to your network. And then you just use the ones you use and you block the ones you don't block. And it's about an arrangement or an agreement that groups may or may not keep. But at the moment, we talk about the embargo around the earth. That is also an embargo on portals. And that is why my group, Connecting Consciousness, in 2015, took the action that we did against the CERN Hadron Collider,
Mhm.
which is publicly available. Publicly, you can see that when we took our action on midday, by 3 minutes past 12, the system had closed down. That was the biggest danger that this planet had faced for a long time, because the object was to open a portal into the lower fourth dimension and bring in a load of evil. And it was just the only opportunity they had through the alignments. And a lot of people moan on about the Hadron Collider. Forget it. It can't do any harm. It's been taken out. Its moment is gone. And the CIA base under that lake, under that area, Geneva, has been removed as well. So time travel is a deeply important aspect, but not to be used as a weapon.
Yes.
Stop it, though.
So are the White Hats able to overtake these three-letter organizations? Have a lot turned around and then change their orientation from dark to the light?
Well, second, sit still, sit still.
And then I know I'll let you go, but
No, it's no, 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 no. He's just jealous because I am talking to the screen and he doesn't like it. It's all right. By and large, the three-letter organizations have been cleansed. Now that for me is one of the most important aspects. The good guy throughout all of this was the National Security Agency, the NSA, because they were more attached to the military and they had more connections to the office of the president and the Constitution, rather than, let's face it, the CIA was set up within 8 weeks of Roswell. That's why the CIA was set up, to control the alien agenda. And then the National Security Agency was originally set up to control the CIA and to communicate with aliens. But what happened, of course, was that the Navy, with the good guys, worked very closely with the National Security Agency. And so it was the NSA that gave Trump all of Hillary Clinton's phone calls and all of the information. So the NSA has allowed the good guys to know what the other agencies who are more ambivalent, how they've been up to. And they're a key part in the good guy operation.
Wow. This all feels really encouraging. I really
It is. I mean, it's not, look, it's difficult and it's hard, but it's not hopeless.
Yeah.
It's never been hopeless.
Oh, yeah.
And we're near the end of it now, thank God.
No, right? It's just like, oh man. Yeah. gosh, sometimes it feels like really thick, but yeah, just like you said, just have to really focus on taking care of the self, knowing where boundaries are needed,
Yes.
and just continue
Well,
doing.
it's been lovely to talk to you. I know you want to go.
I don't want to go. I know I get to do another roundtable. We're going to be on with Alex Collier and Nick Sylvester on the 19th.
Yeah, yeah. So I look forward to
I really
that.
look forward to that. I'm so grateful for your time and all that you
I'm
shared. I've
thank
always
you.
absolutely loved being with you, and I feel so much better.
Well, your audience, I always say every bloody time I speak to you, but it's so important that uh, my mother, who worked with Operation Paperclip, you know, and she worked for a number of years with the German scientists on all the back engineering of the stuff, and I spoke to Colonel Corso's son because Colonel Corso got hold of me, Colonel Corso's son, I beg your pardon, and he said he just wanted to thank me because I had talked about his father. And at the time, Colonel Corso's book, which I think was called The Day After Roswell, I think it was called The Day After Roswell. Just forgive me if I'm not right. But it come under a lot of attack from deep staters who were trying to destroy his credibility. And I remember as a small boy, my mother saying to me that whichever general it was, I don't know if it was General Twining, had said to either Jesse Marcel, no, not Jesse Marcel, the intelligence agent, the intelligence officer, he said, take your German scientists with you, go look over that craft. And then he said, take von Braun with you. And in Corso's book, he says that von Braun was taken to the crash site. So when he wrote that in that book, and my mother, who worked for MI5, you called it ML5, it's MI5, Ministry of Intelligence 5, MI5. And really, she was working for the National Security Agency. When she told me that, yeah, von Braun was taken to the crash site at Roswell, not the debris field, not the pod field, because there were several. The truth isn't really out there. There was a pod, the escape pod, that came down one place. There's a debris field that came down another. There's a body field that they dropped out, but there was the real crash site, which was an almost complete craft. And that's the one they took von Braun to. The reason they took von Braun was because he was a rocket man. And what they wanted to say is, you understand terrestrial rockets. Look at it. You can tell us immediately whether this is German, Russian, what have you. So the fact that my mother told me that and Colonel Corso wrote that told me that Corso was genuine, that what he was recounting was real. And I wanted to say to the world, this man is telling the truth. So his son got hold of that, and his son came on and did a Zoom or a Skype with me. Just said, I just want to thank you for supporting my dad. And that was really interesting. Yeah, definitely.
Oh wow, gosh, thanks for sharing that. Wow. It's wild, just that time of history and your
Mm,
background and your family
mm, yeah.
and gosh, I want to dive into that maybe at a future interview. I hope we can do this again.
You listen. I always what I say because it's what the people want, and I'm not being, sugary or canned. If your audience like what's taken place today, then they will say to you, get him back.
Oh,
If the audience are bored, they didn't like it, or I'm not interested, then I won't come back. So let's see what the audience want. You ask them what they and ask them to give you questions. If they want me back, then let's answer their questions directly.
oh,
Because I said to my coordinators the other day, I said, my God, because I'm doing a talk with Kerry Cassidy. She's coming to Britain, and I'm going to be a guest speaker and go to a conference and speak. That's in about a month's time. My topic is, you'll love it, flying saucers, Nazi tech, or something else. That's my topic, right? And and I was just saying, you know, all of the paperclip scientists are dead. All of the people who work with them are dead. But my connection is that my mother worked on paperclip with Nazi scientists in America and Berlin, the British half of Berlin. And for 12, 15 years of my life, I was enmeshed in German scientists back engineering alien spacecraft as part of Paperclip. And there aren't many people that can now stand in front of an audience and say, I've got that. I didn't read it in a book. I didn't watch a YouTube video. I lived that life. And before this physical body dies, I hope it don't die just yet, I want people to know what Paperclip was, because it's still not fully understood. Obviously, because of the deep point and what was really going on. So I've got that connection and that understanding. So I thought, look, I'm going to go and do this talk with Kerry in London in a month's time. I'm going to talk about that, and hopefully it'll be interesting.
Oh gosh, I want to be there for that.
Oh, bless you.
Oh yeah, I wish I could. What's the date of that?
I can't remember.
Okay.
Don't
I just
take
saw
me the
her.
wrong way.
I
My
just saw
mind is
her.
but I tell you what we do. SimonParks.org
Oh yeah.
is my SimonParks.org, and it's up there. I've got Kerry's link. Anyone is Britain. We've actually got people from America coming over, and that's fantastic to come and see me, and I'm really grateful to them. And so if you go to SimonParks.org and you're in a position to do it, there's a link. Click it. You go straight to Kerry's site, buy your tickets, and I'd be delighted to talk to you after the conference.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow. I'm going to check that out because I'm going to be in England, and maybe I can extend my stay so I can come hear that talk. Is there any,
Bless you.
yeah. Is there a few words you can just say about Project Paperclip that in
No,
summary?
no. That's naughty. That's naughty. We'll get me back if people want me.
Well, even if they, of course they will, but regardless of what they, I always do. So
I don't know that. They may not. They may say, "Oh, what's next?" Who knows?
Well, I know that's not. I think, yeah, you get more hits than anybody else I talk to, and a lot of great feedback. And I always love talking to you. So regardless, it's just amazing for me. So I thank you.
Oh, well, you're a very genuine woman. Now, I'm not being patronizing. You are a very genuine woman. There are a lot of people who do what you do, if I may say so, for the wrong reasons. You actually do it for the right reasons, which is about trying to get the truth out, not making yourself look brilliant, but saying, how can I get as close to the truth out to the audience, and they can make their mind up. And audiences are not stupid. They recognize someone who's in it for the gain or the money, or they want this, and they know people who are genuine. And I'm so fortunate that I've got this history. My God's sake, my grandfather working for the CIA, my mother working for the National Security Agency, and I grew up from 1966, when she started working for the security services, and when they murdered her in 1979. So I was in that environment from 66 until they killed her in 79. So my whole life has been surrounded by that, and of course all of the alien experiences that I was having at the time. And there's no coincidence. So what am I going to do? I could go and be a janitor in a store. I could go and do this and just never tell anyone. Or I could, and I decided in 2010 that I would be open, and I would say to people, I really want to tell you about the world you're living in that you don't know about. And I was amazed that some people did, and that was great to connect with people who had seen the truth. But I was also very saddened by the number of people who were frightened and didn't want to know. And that's that child who turns the flashlight off in the dark room and says, I'd rather see nothing at all, thank you very much. And I don't get that, because once you see the truth, you never want to go away from it. Right, listen, lots of love to you. God bless you. God bless America.
Thank you
I
for your
mean
service
that.
and all that you do.
Thank you. And see what your audience want to do. And go on the website, simonparks.org. And if you are in a position to come to the conference, I'd love to see you.
Oh, that's beautiful. Amazing. Thank you. I'll see you on the 19th with Alex and Nick.
Yes, I look forward to it. And I look forward to seeing Alex. I've got the highest regard for Alex.
Oh.
Alex Collier is more important to me than David Icke. I'll tell you quickly. I know we've got to go, and I should learn to shut up. But I'll tell you something important about Alex. He is the only man, apart from me, that I know understood about Adam and Eve, the moon and the Mars bases that were established by humans, but human mainly. He, I don't know, it was 1985, whenever it was, he went and talked about Adam and Eve. Okay. And he was an incredibly brave man. And there are very, very few who have the knowledge that he has. And I recognize that what he talks about is truth. I think he's a very, very important man. And I'm very sad that he has not been recognized in a greater way. And I hope in the future, actually, that he will be recognized for the immense knowledge that he's tried to impart to people. So I got a lot of regard for him. Okay, I will go.
Incredible. I'm so glad we're bringing this together. Okay, well, thank you again. Much love. I'll see you real soon. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.